evening or good afternoon. It's 6 o'clock. Thank you for coming to our meeting this evening. And please turn off your cell phones or any noisemakers if you have them. Roll call. Everybody's here but the mayor. And he is definitely excused. The pledge will be led by Councilman Lopez and the prayer by Councilman Juan Andazola.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we thank you for this day, and we're graciously joyful for our community that we graciously live in, because we have great staff, great employees, great direction from our management team, from the manager to the city clerk to the department heads, Lord. And we ask you to bless every one of our employees, and we ask you to be with us tonight, Lord, as we come together to make decisions for this wonderful community, and that we may be blessed in your name. We ask this through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you.
Are you there, Bill? Bill?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm here.
All right. Attorney's here.
Okay, then we'll move on to item number 5, citizens' comments on agenda items. We have one from Jeff Gold. Did you want to speak now?
Yeah,
And
I do.
if there's
I
a
got it.
3-minute
Piece there.
time limit, and state your name, address, please.
Did you say name and address?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Jeff Gott. I live at 1935 South 2nd Avenue here in Safford. I appreciate you all allowing us the opportunity to make a statement. I'm here tonight to just talk about the Truth in Taxation tax hearing that is part of the agenda tonight. I consider myself to some extent here speaking on behalf of fixed income residents of this fine city of ours. And being fixed income, I don't have an opportunity to keep up with inflation and other items that have been happening lately. So when I get an opportunity to speak on behalf of upcoming taxes, I usually try to take that opportunity. Inflation has been tough on residents. I would think in some ways inflation might be positive to city revenue, but it definitely affects us. And I've spoken on these type of issues before. While I don't understand the exact details of tax increases, I know this type of an increase is probably due to increased valuation. It's not a direct result of trying to raise the tax levy, and yet with increased valuation, taxes did get raised. Or are being proposed to be raised. I was looking back through my records and noticed that kind of ironically, back in 2020, the primary tax rate was 51.35, which I see it's being proposed to be increased up to 51.35. So it seems to me that over the last couple of years, I've watched it go down. I think in 2020, it was proposed to drop to 49.63, and then last year's rate was 48.97, and it seems like we're taking a fairly good sized step. So that says to me, and in my logic, like I said, not fully understanding, that there's been an opportunity the last couple of years to lower the levy a little bit to get it down into the 40s, and now valuation probably has taken it to the 51.35, but you all are proposing to let it go ahead and rise back up to that. I understand it takes tax revenues and other revenues to run a city, so I appreciate what you all do to run the city well and to make good decisions. I just am here to speak again on behalf of fixed income residents, hoping that you all will do everything in your power to keep our tax rate as low as possible, because that makes it very much more positive for residents like me. So I'm not opposed. When I filled out the ability to speak form, I didn't say for or against. I'm mixed. I understand the need to have good revenue for the city, but again, please do everything you can to keep our rates low. Thank you very much. I appreciate being able to speak.
Thank you, John. Okay. Anybody else on agenda items? Okay, citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Do we have anybody on that? No. Then we'll move on to item number 7. It's a public hearing as required by Arizona Revised Statute Section 42-17104 and 42-17107. It's a public hearing to be held for the purpose to hear from the comment on the public comments on the following items: the proposed budget tax levy for the city of Safford for fiscal year ending June 30, 2024.
Great, thank you, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Maybe I'll give a brief staff introduction on the item prior to the public hearing opening. As you indicated, Vice Mayor, this is required by Arizona Revised Statutes. There's two elements of a required hearing. One is regarding the budget itself. That is the tentative budget that was adopted just 2 weeks ago by this body. So now there's a time for taxpayers to come and opine as to that budget as well as the tax levy. Because our tax levy is raising or rising more than what is allowed under statutes, we also have to have a combined truth and taxation hearing. Both of those hearings needed to be publicly noticed, which they were based on the statutory requirements, published 2 weeks back to back at different times. The budget was available for public review both in this building, in the library, the city clerk, as well as on our website, as well as our calculations for truth and taxation, and where the city staff and where we're be requesting of city council to keep the rate itself the same at the 5135, but because assessed valuations did go up, that's what triggers the truth and taxation hearing. So what is increasing is about $14,000 in total levy, meaning the total dollars we will receive from the prior year. If you recall from the presentation that I gave just 2 weeks ago, the city of Safford represents about 5% of the typical taxpayer's property tax bill. Most of that is either schools, other school-type districts, as well as the county itself. Knowing that this was published as a public hearing and where we had already a member of the public indicate, there are elements, just for you, Mayor and Vice Mayor and members of the council, state statutes do dictate some exemptions relative to, or some assistance relative to property taxes. Those statutes then dictate that down to the county assessor, who then shall determine whether an exemption would be allowed. Those exemptions are for folks on fixed income that are in a certain age bracket and an income bracket, as well as current disability issues relative to seeking exemption. I believe there was some also in the current legislative session, don't quote me on that, but I also think they added an element for veterans. So any member of the community that is perhaps struggling in making their property tax payment, not just for the city of Safford, but for any of the taxing jurisdictions, my suggestion would be to reach out to the county assessor and seek what type of relief and process they would need to go through in order to seek an exemption or assistance with that. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Now, if there are any others for the public hearing, state statutes does require that be opened. Members of the public opine or given that opportunity to opine and then close the hearing. Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll close the public hearing and reconvene into a special meeting.
Vice Mayor, if I may, just a point of order, if we could see if there are anybody else that is necessary for the budget hearing as well as the property tax levy. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody that wants to? No?
Vice Mayor, I was asked by the public, especially those that are watching, that when we do vote, we all raise our hands where we can be seen for sure and counted so they can see it also, and that we speak up so that we can be heard. And lots of times take our time in between certain things so that we make sure we're keeping everybody with us. And I told them I'd ask, so however that weighs.
Vice Mayor, members of council, just to kind of piggyback on the councilman's comments, We are considering changing the approach that we take very slightly going forward. I wanted to have an opportunity to talk with council about that first. But one of the things I would like to see if we can do in the future is when the council votes, as they do now by showing of hands, that the clerk actually read in the results of that showing of hands as to a motion. And I think that would help facilitate, one, getting into the record what the actual vote was with an audio signature for the future minutes. And then number two, it would allow her to flow into any resolution or ordinances that need to be read into the record. So we seem to have difficulty sometimes as we go forward in the meeting, and we kind of are doubling back. So you would still vote as you do, just simply by a raising of the hands, and then she would then acknowledge what that vote was for that particular motion, and if it was a resolution or an ordinance, would then go into the process of reading that into the record. So I think we're going to try and do that again. I wanted to, since the issue was raised, I wanted to pass it by council first, but just to give you a kind of a precursor that we'd be trying to bring something like that in the future, and that might help address the councilman's issues in the going forward.
Sorry, it wasn't an agenda item. Was that?
But there's a good point, thank you.
Rob, just quick clarification. How many years have we been at this rate that we're currently at?
Vice Mayor, members of the council, I believe this is the third, if not the fourth year that we've kept it at 5135.
Okay, thank you.
Was there anybody else that had any questions or comments?
And Vice Mayor, what'd you say, it was 14,000 more we gathered this year on because of the evaluation going up?
Yes, Vice Mayor, members of the council, keeping the rate at that 5135 and then having the assessed valuation go up then creates a levy increase of approximately $14,000 more than just for new construction. So because of that, it does trigger a truth and taxation hearing. So it is $14,000 in total, and that is out of approximately $308,000 that will be generated via the property tax levy in total.
So it's not a great deal, but also our budget that we're gonna be considering, in all that we've done in this budget season, we did not raise any taxes anywhere else.
That is correct. Vice Mayor, members of the council, the budget that was in front of you 2 weeks ago and again tonight did not include any tax increases. There were no tax rate changes. The increase is due to the fact, at least on the property tax, due to the assessed valuation going up. No different than, unfortunately, how sales tax works as inflationary pressures happen with buying a vehicle or buying other goods. The sales taxes that you're paying are up because the cost of that good went up. The rate changed, the rate stayed the same.
Which is reflected in our utilities because of fuel costs and all the other stuff that's coming our way. We've had to raise some of our enterprise rates, and that has gone up, and I don't feel we have control over that.
Right. Vice Mayor, members of the council, yes, so the existing rate schedule for both our electric and gas utilities included price adjustments relative to commodity price changes that are market-driven in order to deal with the situation, very situation that happened this last year where the commodity cost went through the roof and we did not have the dollars in order to cover that. So it was of no issue from the city's perspective. It's not as if we were inefficient or we did a poor job at estimating other expenses that went up. It was strictly due to that anomaly of natural gas pricing going very high.
And for a period of time, we did absorb that.
Yes, Vice Mayor, members of the council, we did. This body back in October also agreed to use a certain level of contingency, basically fund balance in order to cover that. And then the rest of it, we were cash flowing, if you will, until making this most recent adjustment just a couple months ago.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and reconvene into the special meeting. Item number 9, final budget adoption. Resolution R23-012. It's the fiscal year budget for 2023-2024. It's the final budget. Rob, begin.
Vice Mayor, members of council, I just wanted to pass along, I did talk to the mayor today, and he let me know that he would not be able to attend tonight. He did ask that I send along his gratitude to council and staff for the budget process that we had this year. He was very appreciative of what the staff has done and what we put together, and so I just wanted to convey that on his behalf since he requested that I do so.
Thank you.
I have a question. We're leaving a public hearing, and we're closing the public hearing and reconvening into a special meeting. And then the next item, we're gonna go to a regular meeting. Is there different rules for special and regular meeting?
Yes, Vice Mayor, members of the council, one of the weird situations in state statutes, it dictates how a public body, a governing body adopts the budget. And it says you shall have a hearing like you just had, and then immediately following that hearing, shall consider said budget in a special meeting. So it very clearly in the statutes, it's calling it a special meeting. So by adjourning now or convening a special meeting to allow you to consider the item, which is to adopt your final budget, that procedural element is required by statute.
But we can still speak the same, we can still.
You can
act
still
the
speak the same, we just need to call it a special meeting.
Well,
Yes.
okay. I didn't think it was that weird,
Yeah.
but.
So,
Go ahead.
thank you, Vice Mayor. So, Vice Mayor, members of the council, staff is here requesting your approval of Resolution R23-012. That is the final budget adoption for fiscal year 23-24, based on the state schedules and attachments that are within the packet in front of you. Even though we just had a hearing relative also to the property tax levy, that is not an action in front of you tonight. That action will come back on the 12th of June. Again, a weird statutory element, which is the councils or that governing body shall not consider the tax levy sooner than 14 days after having the hearing. So you do the math, I think we'll be okay. So it won't be sooner than 14 days. So two elements relative to finalizing fiscal 23-24 budget. The two-step is now the final budget tonight, and then the property tax levy resolution will be required with you on the 12th. So the city and the staff, we've been developing this budget since last August, working with departments, coming up with needs from a capital perspective, talking with the council to understand your priorities as we set forth to put estimates together to continue our operations and then perhaps bring things to you that were net new that would add value to the organization. So the council has, over the last few months and several months, reviewed several elements to this and approved sub-pieces to it, our capital improvement program, some of the salary and market adjustments, and then most recently, 2 weeks ago, the tentative budget, which set your high water mark for fiscal 23-24. You could not go above that amount. So in accordance with the statutes, we did need to publish at least a piece of the budget for the public to see, and that was published in the Eastern Arizona Courier, as well as the entire all budget schedules were available for public viewing, both in this facility, within City Hall, and online. So staff is in front of you tonight, Vice Mayor, members of the council, seeking your approval of Resolution R23-012. That is a resolution adopting the City of Safford's fiscal 23-24 budget in the amount of $78,880,737 per the attached schedules. I'd be glad to answer any additional questions you may have. Thank you.
Any questions? I'd just like to make a comment that I thought the way the budget was presented to us this year, it was very clear and it was easy to understand and follow. So I definitely want to, thank staff for the good job that they did.
I feel the same way. And also in the CIP presentations, they were a lot more informative. There was questions answered even before I get to talking, and I enjoyed it, really. Much as crazy as it is. And I do thank staff for all their input to help me make this decision and these decisions that I get. I'm hoping that what the public can see online when they go to our agenda areas, that they can clearly see and read a lot of the information that we have in front of us to make some of these decisions. Because we do get comments like, how'd you make up your mind that quick? You didn't. Sometimes they don't realize how long we've talked about it and how often. So if they can clearly see it out on the website, it helps that way also.
Right.
I'll repeat the same thing. The process has been fantastic this year, but not only that, what's in the budget, I think is also fantastic, especially the compensation plan and the things we're doing with the park. So the process was great, but to me, and it might not be popular to say because we're talking about spending money, but I think what we've come up with, staff has come up with in a way to use our funds has been equally outstanding.
Well, thank you on behalf of all the staff. It's a team effort, and with John's leadership, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any other comments? This is an action item.
I move we approve Resolution R 23-012, the fiscal year 2023-2024 final budget in the amount of $78,880,737.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the budget for $78,888 and $733,000. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the budget as presented. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we'll close the special meeting. Oh, read it.
Resolution number R 23-012, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, approving and adopting the city budget for fiscal year ending June 30th of 2024.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll close the special meeting and reconvene into regular meeting. Item number 11. Any questions on the minutes of May 8th, 2023?
Vice Mayor, I make the motion that we approve the minutes for May 8th of 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of May 8th, 2023. All those in favor, raise aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 11, approve, this is a good one, approve the manager's appointment of the chief of police.
Item 12.
Item 12, who was your recommendation?
Well, I'm getting to that.
Okay, well, don't hold us in suspense.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of council. I'm bringing forward to council and seeking your approval for Mr. Brian Avila as the City of Safford Police Chief. And as I've provided in the CCNF that, you know, we did go through a process. Obviously, as we got down to the final two candidates, one of those candidates dropped out. But the discussions that I had with the group that were part of that process, it was pretty much a unanimous consent at that point that Brian had done very, very well, and we had no qualms whatsoever about bringing him forward as a candidate for chief. And as you may recall, not long ago, we did make some approvals to change the ordinances by which that hiring process would occur. That ordinance is not in effect until the end of this week, but I saw no reason to wait on that. So in accordance with the existing city code, 2.36.020, appointment of officers, I am bringing this appointment on my behalf to you for your approval.
Any comments?
It's Avila or Avila?
Avila. Did I say it wrong?
Do we need to cut your tongue a little bit so we can get that?
No comment.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all.
I think the choice is a very good choice because we'll have a man of character, and I think that is very important representing, you know, part of the city. Anybody else?
Good news.
Okay. In that case, it's an action item.
I move that we approve the city manager's appointment of Brian Avila as chief of police.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the appointment of the new chief of police. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And we'll move on to item number 13. It's, contracts and agreement bids. Item number 1, police station renovation. It's a request for to approve the job order contract for renovation of the old police station to Danson Construction LLC.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. You said this is a request to authorize and award a job order contract cooperative agreement for the renovation of the old police station to Danson Construction LLC. Just a little background, this project consists of renovating a portion of an existing 4,000 square foot facility, which is the old police station. The facility will be used for evidence storage and for investigators' offices. The renovation will include removing interior walls, hard capping the ceiling, creation of a secured evidence handling area, installation of 2 walk-in coolers, adding secured access to the records vault room, and providing separate exterior access to the IT electrical room, which is currently accessed through the existing evidence storage room. This project was created as a design-build project contract with Danson Construction LLC, and they were hired through a job order contract cooperative agreement. Danson was selected based on being pre-qualified and vetted for job order contracting services through this cooperative agreement, and based on previous work they performed while constructing the new police station. The initial design phase has been completed with the assistance of Danson Construction and the architectural firm Mary, Cornell, and Schlecht. This approach enabled us to match some of the design and construction techniques used on the new police station build. This award will initiate the second phase. The award I'm talking to you tonight about was the second phase, or the construction phase of the project. Just the bid analysis there, I put together a table that shows that this was a budgeted item, that we have $225,000 budgeted in this fiscal year. We've expensed to date $26,200, which includes design. We're going to purchase the refrigerated pass-through lockers. The city's gonna purchase those, and they'll be installed. The refrigerators themselves will be part of this contract, will be installed. And we've got a contingency in there, and we're still at a total of $204,175. And that remaining balance, we expect to do also do some more interior, maybe some flooring, some painting, and upgrade a few more things with the budget we have remaining. So that being said, the staff recommends that the Vice Mayor and Council approve this cooperative agreement and entered into a contract with Danson Construction in the amount of $135,887 for renovations to the old police station building, and allow the city manager or his designee to execute contract change orders not to exceed 10% of the construction contract value, if in the best interest of the city to do so. And I'm willing to take any questions you may have on this project.
I'm good.
Anybody else, anybody have any questions? No? It's an action item.
I move that we approve the cooperative bid award for the police station renovation to Danson Construction LLC.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the award the contract to Danson Construction LLC. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Then we'll move on to item 2, airport water line.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. This is a request for the Mayor and Vice Mayor and Council to authorize a bid award and enter into a contract of the airport water storage tank with Revolution Industrial. A little bit of background, this is the replacement of the water line that goes up to the airport. It's a little bit over a mile long. We're bidding this in 2 phases. This will allow us to have some fire protection up at the airport. So this is the installation of the water tank itself. It's a 200,000 gallon water tank that'll be tied into a fire booster. We'll have a second phase to this, which would be the water line itself, the replacement of an old existing water line that's there. That'll be coming to you in the future. For right now, this is just bidding the 200,000 gallon tank. We had a bid opening on May 4th with a total of 4 bids received. You guys should be able to see those in your packet. The one right now is we have a budget in here for just a little bit over $1 million. This bid award would be for $543,893, leaving a little bit of money in the next year's budget to finish out the water line itself. This project's being funded by the enterprise funds and the water division is where the funding source would be coming from. Staff recommends that the vice mayor and council to approve a bid award and enter into contract in the amount of $543,893.65 for the construction of the 200,000 gallon storage tank, and allow the city manager or his designated authority to execute change orders and not to exceed the 10% of the contracted value, if in the best interest of the city to do so. With that, I'd stand for questions if you guys have any.
Okay, I know we identified this to try to help with the fire suppression at the airport, but does it also help the rest of the neighborhood up there?
Well, the line itself needs to be replaced. It's actually a 5-inch line. It's actually been composited of a lot of different materials. It's a clay line. It's got some ductile in it. It's got some, the line itself that supplies it needs to get changed out. The fire suppression system, I believe, is a requirement for the airport to get. I'll kind of look to Lance to approve that, to validate that, but
5-inch clay?
there's some 5-inch clay line that goes up there. There's some pretty rough lines that it was older too that needed to get replaced.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. So, Councilman Lopez, to answer your question, this would benefit the airport alone as of right now, since there is no development around the airport. The water line that provides service to the airport is serviced by a booster pump at the bottom of the hill that just serves the airport. If there were to be some development around the airport area, we could potentially hook onto this system and provide them service as well, but as of right now, it's just gonna serve the airport properties.
So if it's identified as fire suppression and mainly for the airport, we don't qualify for fire district funds to aid?
Vice Mayor and Councilman Lopez, I'm not too sure or positive about the answer for that. We could track that down. This is an item that council had brought to us, wanting to improve the water system within the airport area to help with growth in the airport.
Just off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that the airport is in the city limits, not in the district. So it's not a benefit to the district at this point.
That's correct.
Vice Mayor and Councilman Andazola, or Lopez, I may answer your question. So this system's being designed for water development up at the airport, but 200,000 gallons sitting up there in a tank, obviously they don't use that much up there. So right now it's gonna be set up as a non-potable system for fire flows. As we develop up there, we're designing it so we can use that tank for development at the airport if we get enough flow through it to where it's not non-potable water anymore. So right now, it's gonna be a tank to store water on site for fire flows only with a fire pump. As we develop and grow and start using more water up there, we can convert that over and have a storage tank up there for development on the hill.
So we're filling it from down below the hill?
We'll fill it from down below. It'll sit there full until fire demands it, fire flow demands it. So it's gonna have some pretty stagnant water in it, except for fire flows, until we develop enough to where we can convert that over and have it as a water storage for a potable system, which we'll have to grow quite a bit up there to get enough flow through that, but I hope we grow up there. And there's a lot of area to develop around the airport.
Just trying to get some money.
So to answer that question as well, I know Matthew's been actively looking at some alternative fundings for at least the water line. That's gonna be kind of the more expensive portion of this. I believe he's got a pretty good lead, and I think they've even actually granted the money for that.
Yes, we at least tentatively, pending the passage of the federal budget, we've got over $2 million in a grant right now that would be used to fund this project. And just a reminder, wasn't that long ago that we had to do a special variance for a hangar up there because we didn't have the pressure to bring water for fire suppression. So that's part of the answer. Also, some of these lines will go past areas where additional hangars will be built. So the line itself will serve as an economic development engine as well. So we're building that infrastructure because generally speaking, the FAA and the state don't fund those through grants, so we had to foot the bill for that on our own. But there is a very strong potential. We got word from Senator Kelly's office that we had a grant for over $2 million. Now, that grant will have to go through the federal process, through the appropriations committees before we get a final number, but they have agreed to carry that forward for us, and it's kind of a similar process that we did with 20th Avenue, except at the federal level.
You know, I'd just like to say, I like what's happening there, because it seems like you're looking down the road, preparing for the future, and I think that is something that's very important.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Is there anybody else? Any comments? Okay, this is
Good.
it's an action
Good.
item? Okay. Do we need a motion to?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll move that we give the bid award to Revolution Industrial for the airport water line and tank install for $343,893.65.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to award the bid. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Then we'll move on to item number 3, the addendum to existing inspection service agreement.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. This is a request for the Mayor and City Council to authorize participation in the addendum to existing inspection services agreement between the Arizona Department of Housing and Graham County. This is a renewal of the current agreement dated January 2012, and you have both the old agreement and the new agreement in your packet. Staff recommends approval as the current process is beneficial to the City of Safford. The agreement allows Graham County to inspect the installation of manufactured homes, factory-built buildings, and mobile homes. The City of Safford Building Inspector issues a zoning approval before the installation occurs. This ensures that all setbacks and other zoning regulations are complied with. I have not had any issues with the process in my tenure. The city attorney has reviewed the updated agreement and has no concerns with the document. This agreement lessens the inspection burden on the City of Safford staff while ensuring that all City of Safford code requirements are enforced. With that, do you have any questions?
What is it, excuse me, what is the term of the agreement?
5 years.
Okay.
When I had questions about this during the week, they all got answered because it's needed to an extent since we're going further with that. But I don't know, I'd just like to throw in there, if we go 300 feet, that they also may be required to go ahead and put a tracer wire in there.
That's a different item.
Different item?
Yeah.
This, Councilman Lopez and Vice Mayor, this is just the addendum for manufactured housing
Oh.
inspections.
I'm over.
You passed me.
Okay. Got it. I'm backed up.
Anybody else? Or if not, this is an action item?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
That's the year agreement. Okay. Yeah. No, I know where I'm at now.
I move that we approve the addendum to existing inspection services agreement between the Arizona Department of Housing and Graham County.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve the existing inspection service agreements. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, then we'll move on to item number 14.
I'm back.
Ordinance number 023-007. It's the municipal code 13-28-010 amendment.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. This is a request for Vice Mayor and Council to discuss and conduct the first reading of ordinance 023-007, an ordinance amending the City of Safford Municipal Code, Title 13, Chapter 28.010, general rules and regulations applicable to all classes of service. During the recodification process of the City of Safford Municipal Code in 2022, staff reviewed each of their sections to ensure accuracies and make any needed changes. Prior to the code revision, if a customer were to seek water service, the customer needed to meet requirements to deem water available to the property. First, the property line shall abut the water main by 50 feet. This rule ensures that the City of Safford does not have excessive lengths of small diameter service lines to maintain. Second, the customer was required to build the structure within 100 feet of the meter box. This rule was viewed as very restrictive when considering that Safford Water serves areas that have potential of having properties larger than 1 acre. Through the process of the recodification, the 50-foot abutment rule remained, and the distance from the water meter to the structure was removed. Since the code revision in 2022, we've seen what negative impact this can have by not limiting the distance from the meter to the structure when referring to future development and cost sharing. Since the code was changed, we've seen several lot splits that result in odd-shaped parcels and upwards to 1,000 feet of private line being installed. When considering future development, property owners who have large lots that abut the main with no limitation of distance from the meter have the ability to split the lot into several pieces and serve each lot at one central location on the water main. This action, although benefits the closest property owner, will increase the burden on the surrounding property owners by requiring them to extend the water main further than needed if each property owner were to share the cost burden by being required to extend the main closer to the structure being served. The city would like to implement a reasonable distance, keeping in mind the larger lots and having the ability to build structures away from the property line. The amendment of the code would require the owner to build the structure within 300 feet of the water meter, and also giving the city the ability to review any requested services to exceed 300 feet to be approved or denied based on the surrounding area's potential for development. The recommendation is to approve the holding of the first reading of ordinance O23-007 related to giving the city the ability to assist the water system to develop for future growth. So attached to your packets, I have 2 exhibits that I'll bring up just to kind of help explain what this revision will do for us. So in your packet, I have 2 examples. Each example has identical distance from the meter to the property. One is inappropriate and one would be deemed appropriate. So this example, or exhibit A, would be inappropriate. As you can see, the water main on the right-hand side abuts property or owner A parcel. Owner A also owned this large parcel here and had the ability to split these 2 parcels and abut the main, and allowing them to serve these 2 parcels in this location, having a 700-foot private line skirting around the existing dwelling and to serve 2 other parcels. Now, these are real-world applications that we've been dealing with. So owner B has a well that serves the dwelling. Owner B contacted us and was asking us for water service and what it would take. So they do not have the ability to extend their property to meet that 50-foot roll from the roll from the main. So they would be required to extend the water main all the way past owner A's property, bearing the cost of that entire extension, when if we had the ability to limit this and require owner A to extend the water main to their own property, then owner B could then afford to extend it further to serve their parcel. So exhibit B is an example of an appropriate length, where you can see the water main is established all the way across the parcels. The owner has a dwelling 700 feet off the roadway in a cotton field. This would be deemed appropriate as the main is already established. This is a narrow parcel. They can't split anymore, and all they want to do is build in the middle of the cotton field. With that, I would stand for any questions you may have.
Vice Mayor. And And this mainly benefits who? Everybody or just us?
So Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, what this does is that it puts the burden on everybody. So it allows the neighboring parcels that don't have the ability to abut the main. It forces the people that are already there to share the cost burden to extend the main to get it closer to other properties. For example, I'll go back to Exhibit A, to where this we could deny the 700-foot private line, we could deny it and require owner A to extend this water main past and sharing the burden with owner B to get it closer to their property. So this is going to limit growth in an aspect, but it's also going to help the water system to develop properly. So right now, if owner B wants to develop, he financially wouldn't be able to. If any of these properties over here wanted to develop, well, now they have to bring that water main all the way past owner A's property and bear that cost, when owner A should also have a buy-in as well.
Well, you scared me with limit growth. That's,
So either way, it's gonna have an impact either way, but by allowing us to approve or deny, it's going to help us assist the water infrastructure or the community water system to grow properly. So right now, as it sits today, people can split off and run no matter how far, and it's going to prohibit the growth of the water system.
Mr. Vice Mayor, this is Bill Sims. What Morgan is telling you is it makes good planning sense to adopt a policy that forces property owners to work cooperatively and share in the cost of extending the water line. The exhibit A shows how one property owner would spend a lot of money, but if he or she just spent it and extended the water line to adjacent to her property, then the other owners would benefit as well, and they could share in it as well. It forces all the parties to work together to share in the cost of the water line, and it doesn't result in oddly configured lots.
Thank you, Bill.
Sir.
okay, what I was asking a while ago was, and this is just to work with our residents, if they go over that 300 feet, we can't require them to put in a tracer wire for the future to find it, because we always have a leak on gas or water, and we go turn off their meters, and then now they're on their own to repair that, and they can't find it, because they don't know where it is anymore. When we're standing there with the machine, where we could hook up with that wire right then and give them an idea where their line is, just a matter of working with the residents. That's a courtesy to them.
So Vice Mayor, Councilman Lopez, the other requirement in that code states that they have to meet the International Plumbing Code at the time. So if the International Plumbing Code requires them to put tracer wire in with the private line, then they would need to do so, but that would be inspected by the building inspector. So this, for example, would be the county would be county inspecting. If they built it within the city, we would be inspecting that and ensuring that they meet that building code.
We don't have that code right now.
Yes, you do.
We do, tracer wire, I know you're gonna catch them, but I just throwing that out there to try to be helpful to the customer. That's all, that's me.
Any other comments on that? Anybody?
I'm not sure how I feel about this, because I think it's gonna limit growth more than what we've just helped it for the last couple of years trying to get permit prices down. I kinda have a feeling this is gonna get real expensive on some people that they're just gonna back out. I don't know how to see what it's really gonna do without doing it, but I heard from a guy today who is in our service area, but he's not in the city limits. But you still have that hammer over him because the co-op and you traded or whatever, and so he's saying it's gonna cost him $60,000. Maybe that's a fair trade. Sounds like a lot of money to me to build a house. I don't know if we're ready to do this without a couple of examples Because we're sitting here saying we're gonna determine where the growth goes now. We're saying the property beyond you is gonna grow, and so we need to send water to it so it can sit there stagnant and not do anything, because the next owner may not want to develop. So, I don't know, there's a lot of ifs and ands here that I don't see the end to.
So, Vice Mayor, Councilman McGoy, that's kind of where the ability for the city of Safford to review who's wanting to extend it further. It's one thing if you have a large parcel and you want to build your house off your property to extend that private line. It's another if you have that same parcel, you extend that water line, that private water line, and then you try to start splitting off all these parcels, or splitting off that parcel, creating 4 or 5 other parcels and trying to serve all those. At that point, we see that development needs to occur, and to properly serve those people would require a main extension. So at that time, we would review it again and say, if this is your plan, this is what
I agree with you, and I understand that. It's just that when it's up for review, then there's not a hard, fast rule, and at some point, not everybody gets treated the same. So I don't know, I just having a hard time swallowing it.
Vice Mayor? Yeah, I think we kind of had a fairly lengthy discussion about this in our staff meeting as well. And I think the issue that we face is that we're going into large areas and trying to develop. And if someone develops way outside the existing infrastructure, somehow that has to be accommodated. And then if you're having to then go back and then say, well, we let it go 2,000 feet, but now we have all this development that occurs behind it. What do we do with that line? Now we've got to go back out there and do another line. So I don't think you'll ever really get a definitive answer, because there are so many permutations as to what could possibly happen under any number of conditions. So I do think that that's why the idea within the rewriting of the ordinance provides some discretion in terms of looking at the parcels and how they develop. And I've seen other versions of these parcels where they become highly unusual, where they'll have a parcel and then they'll take this one little piece and make it come all the way down to the line. So there'll always be a reaction to regulation. And so I don't know that we'll ever come up with the ideal or permanent solution to it, which is why in situations like this, other than those who are responsible for building that infrastructure and maintaining it having some discretion on how it unfolds, I don't think you'll ever come up with a fixed scenario or distancing that will solve all the issues that you're going to run into. You'll always be able to come up with a scenario where it's costly or it doesn't work. So I think by having that discretion, I think that's really the only real answer, given the amount of ground that we cover and the diversity of that, how some areas are very low density. So I think this was kind of a way of trying to strike a balance with all those needs.
I know that in the past, certain lines have been extended at this person's cost, and I'll pull one out of the air that doesn't have anything to do with us. It's a sewer line from 8th Street Athletic Club into Thatcher. The guy who put it in was told, and anytime anybody attaches to yours, he'll have to pay you. Well, after he got it done and it's in, that's only good for 1 year, according to state law. And I haven't looked that up, and Bill might know off the top of his head, but nobody hooked onto it in that first year, so he got nothing. And he put in over 1/4 mile of sewer line at a huge, it's like 8-inch sewer line. And
You raised a really good point, and Mr. Vice Mayor and Council Member, go to Exhibit A. Let's first question whether or not. Let's assume the owner A comes to Morgan and says he wants to build the line as depicted, and Morgan says no. He actually would be cheaper for him to just extend the water main to the west. But then now, if the deal with Thatcher is they needed to do an agreement. You could say to owner A, you'll do that, and we will enter into an agreement and record an agreement, that will be binding on future, so if owners B, C, or D want to tie in, they have to reimburse you. That could be done, but it'd be done by an agreement. It's a reimbursement agreement. And so what Morgan is saying is, let's not allow owners to go with 700 feet or 1,000 feet to get to their individual property when it'd be more efficient to have the water main that could serve more properties, and if indeed we will be willing to enter into an agreement with you that would be recorded against the land, and when a future owner comes and wants the water main extended, they have to reimburse you. See, I think all of that can be accomplished with the discretion that Morgan is saying. Apparently, you used to, help me here, Morgan, did it used to be 100 feet?
Yes, that's correct.
And so, but by 100 feet, it really did prevent all these long lines. But then what Morgan is saying, there's some of your lots are so large that you have to have more than 100 feet. All Morgan is saying is, if you want to do more than 300, come in and talk to us, and maybe we'll enter, and we will say, if you truly want to extend the line, we can agree to an agreement where we will, future customers who want to tie into the line have to reimburse you. That can be enforced by a contract well beyond a year.
Vice Mayor and Council, if anybody were to come in and request a service line, private service line to be longer than 300 feet, you know, we want to be reasonable, and it's not just going to be my decision. I have to go back with the decision, but I'm going to contact Mr. Brimhall, run him through the scenarios, and we're going to come up with a decision together, and then I'll follow through with that decision. And we really want to be reasonable, flexible, and we don't want to limit necessarily what you can do on your property until it jeopardizes the potential growth, proper growth of the community water system.
I'm not anti what you're doing, don't take this wrong, but I've seen this bite a few people, and I just want to make sure we got all our ducks in a row before we do it, and not afterwards, then wish we'd done it differently. I know you've thought about it a whole lot more than me reading what you put together, but I'm just scared of it a little bit.
That's understandable, and Vice Mayor and Council, and you know, like Bill stated, and in my council communication forum, it used to be 100 feet from the meter box, and at that point, we felt that was very restrictive. We want to be more relaxed and allow people to build off of the property line.
What the city attorney was talking about, the longer agreements, is that then something that we have to keep track of, who owes what to who? I mean, does that put us in a middleman position?
Well, it is a little bit. What I'm saying is the property owner comes, and at 100 feet, you wouldn't likely have to worry about deterring people from doing the long lines because they just can't. Because of the large lots, and I agree, it wouldn't be just Morgan's decision, it would be the city's decision. He's allowing the larger lines. 300 feet is the number he came to. So let's assume, go to Exhibit A, and the owner of dwelling, the owner on A says he wants to put in 700, and Morgan would say, well, you know what? I recommend you keep that to the north, and I'm willing to enter into an agreement with agreement between the city and for oversizing the water main cost reimbursement. And you will pay for this, and you will be caught in the middle of it. When future customers want to tie into the water line, you have to force that future customer to pay owner A. What you're doing is you're getting a more efficient, straight water line. You're not getting a convoluted set of lots. But you're right. The city would have a role. But Morgan, don't you have a role whenever you extend the water main anyway?
Bill, in what regard? So we do review.
In terms of making sure it's built to specs, making sure it's paid, making sure there's no liens. When you have a developer extend the water main, doesn't he have a development agreement, something with you to make sure it's done appropriately?
Bill, that's correct. So they would be required to submit plans to us. We would review them for accuracies that meet our codes, our city codes, and then they would install that water line. And then if there's anybody who wants to hook onto that line, they would have to come to the city, fill out an application for service, and then I would have to review that, put the cost down, and and that's where that.
And it would be at that point, council member, when the city would say, if you want to tie in, you got to pay a portion of what owner A did to bring the water main closer to you.
Recoup some of the cost.
Or nobody comes in and
Yeah, or
there they
nobody
have all
comes
this
in, yeah.
stale water and no place to go with it.
I mean, they,
Okay, I'm shutting up.
That's a very good point. You raise a good point. The city's not guaranteeing that others will come in. All the city is saying, if somebody else comes in, we will make them pay a proportionate share.
Vice Mayor and council, it's, I definitely get your reservations, Councilman McGoy, because I try to look at all these situations from their point of view as well. I wouldn't be able to afford a $60,000 main extension, so if I needed water there, I would hope that I could go to the neighbors and see if they're willing to support that. But I've seen it both ways, where it was very restrictive at the 100 feet. Now I see it the other way, where now it's a little too lenient, and I can see the negative impact it may cause for future development.
well, it can hamper development both ways, so.
Anything else? I guess that was nothing else. Anybody else have any comments? If not,
Vice Mayor, did we have a motion and a vote?
So this is just the
This
first
is
reading?
First reading.
Oh, okay.
she was gonna read it in?
Reading in the first reading of ordinance number 023-007, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, pertaining to utilities and amending section 13.28.010 of Title 13 of the City of Safford Municipal Code.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll move to item 15. It's the finance report. First one is the P card report. Any questions there?
Yes, sir. It's that time of year where I'd like to request that the manager talk to staff to make sure we have definitions that make sense on the P cards, so that when you review them, you know where they're going. For example, we had about 4 of them that was like anywhere from $4,500 to close to $5,000 per purchase that just said wire only. I could use a better description on that, you know, what kind of wire, what size wire. It tells me something on that when I see that better description. So detailed descriptions of what you purchase to help it along. We got a lot of new names on here now too that probably haven't been asked about this, so I just would like to go with you we can ask the manager if he would relay it to staff to be a little more descriptive.
Okay, that was the P card reports. We'll move on to item number 2, expenses over $5,000 report.
I'm good. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? And we'll move on to revenues over $5,000 reports.
It does help in the description on that too, which ones are quarterly, semi, all that kind of description.
Anybody else? And if not, then we'll move on to item number 16, announcement of current events. Anybody have anything? Go ahead.
Vice Mayor, members of council, I just wanted to announce the fact that Keenan Lazenby is here, our new finance director. Today was his first day, so we're just beginning the process by which we bring him on board. So I just want to take the opportunity to introduce him. We're putting together a photo and a bio that will get out to everybody so we get some background on him.
Hi. Welcome, sir.
Let's see, Thursday, with Siegel, we're working on getting a new executive director, and we had a meeting, and we came up with a short list that they'll be contacted. We hope to have one, I think, the interviews sometime by the middle of July. And then I think we had a Siegel meeting Friday. And I think what I got out of that Siegel meeting Friday was they're doing a good job for the counties that they represent. I think we as a city could do even a little better job if we were in touch with our representatives more in Phoenix, so that they would know who we are, what we need, things like that. In other words, we have to be in touch with the people in Phoenix. I think that would help us a lot. Name recognition sure comes in handy.
Vice Mayor, members of council, we're actually having discussions on that very issue currently. In a past life, during the off-season, we actually brought our delegation to our community and kind of gave them a tour and let them see some of the issues we were facing, and put our councils in a position to sit down, even have lunch and discuss issues directly with them and build some relationships. So that's something we'll be looking into, maybe doing something over the summer if we can between sessions when they're less busy. So that's something we are looking into.
Good, thank you. Then we'll move on to item number 17, request for future agenda items. Anybody have anything?
I would like at some point, not anytime soon, but I would like to have a discussion on, I don't even know what it is, but right-of-ways, widths, where are we going traffic-wise? How are we planning for the future? I notice, Thatcher's getting ready to upgrade 8th Street and funnel them into our little narrow neck down, hard to travel piece of our city, and we've known this was coming for 30 years, and here we are. So I'd like to just see maybe what engineering or what staff has on the books for upgrading our ability to move about between here and any place else in the city, and maybe throw our 2 cents worth in on it.
Good point. Anybody else?
I spoke to the manager today. I think it's on down the road too, but we eventually need more office space for our employees. They're bundled up in that building, and this is years down the road. The fire chief kind of put a hold on a fire facility, but we need to start thinking about more office space for our staff, so we can get it in the budget in the future.
Got all that, John?
I do.
All right. And we'll move on to item number 18, report on operational items.
Good evening, Vice Mayor Ortega, members of council. Get to talk to you today about operational item of CityWorks. CityWorks was a project that we brought to you and actually used ARPA funding to purchase the software. To give you some background on what it's used for, in my position here at the city, work a lot with GIS and the mapping that we have around, and we have a lot of assets that are mapped very accurately and well. However, when it comes to the operational standpoint, we're missing a key piece to tie into those assets. What do those assets tell us? How many times have we worked on this section of line? How many times have we worked on this meter? Some key items that we're missing, and this is where CityWorks comes in. CityWorks gives us a brief overview of what we've got in the ground, and it gives our managers, such as Morgan and the other department heads, visibility on what's there and what their guys are doing. It gives us visibility from our standpoint, from the city manager's standpoint, and from their standpoint. Presently, we have water implemented. They've been working with it since January. They came in January. We worked with a vendor called Woolpert. Woolpert came in and trained us, and how vendors do sometimes. There were some quirks that didn't really fit into the package that we wanted, so we've manipulated and kind of transformed it and molded it into what it is today. And it's something I'm pretty proud of and excited to show you, or Morgan's going to show you here in just a little bit. But we're working with water. Our next item would be to go to gas, and then finally electric. But we'll start working with gas here in the next couple of weeks on getting them implemented and onboarded. But I've taken up enough time. Any clarification inquiries for me before I turn the time over to Mr. Seal?
Is he gonna touch on what?
He's
we're
gonna
doing?
he's gonna show you how awesome it is.
Okay.
Perfect. Vice Mayor and Council, thank you. Mr. Seal?
Vice Mayor and Council, I'm going to show you how we apply this City Works out in the field. There's a lot of information on these pages. This is your standard water supervisor dashboard. So this would be whoever has permissions, myself, Nathan, Jonathan, they could go to this dashboard and view any initiated or open service requests, closed service requests, open work orders. So like I said, there's a lot of information on here that I don't want to go too far into, but it dissects all this information and gives you even the costs that we've spent the last 12 months in labor, 12 months in equipment, and then material. So as the employees are out there completing these work orders, they put in their hours that it takes them to complete that job. They input the equipment that they used and the material, and it all has cost to that. So then we can go in there and see what each job is costing. The other dashboards, you can actually, they're unique to you as well. You can build your own dashboard if you want. So this is a dashboard I've created with the assistance of IT. And this one has a map, and it's going to show you all the open work orders. So I can zoom out and I can see any work order that's open right now that needs to be worked on. So the supervisor can then see what work order to assign to the individuals. So you can go down and you can see open service requests, open work orders, assigned work orders, completed work orders. And this map down here, I can zoom out and see all the completed work orders that are ready for myself and Nathan to review for accuracies. If there's anything that we would like to see more, we can reject that work order and push it back to the employee who worked on that and make a comment of what we would like to see, whether that be more comments of, hey, what did you do to resolve this issue? Do you have any pictures to attach? So with that, I would like to go into the asset tracking, as Cade pointed out. So if I go to a work order that's already open, I can open this work order up. It shows the location of where this work order is. Now this work order is tied to the asset. So this asset is the water main. So I can go on this left-hand side, I can see who created this work order, when it was created, at what time, what were the instructions for the employee. So the employee, when they open up a work order, it's simplified. They don't have all this information that's coming at them. So like I said, there's a lot here for them. All they see is the instructions that they need, what the issue is, the date and the time, location. So for the employee to enter this in, it simplifies that so that they don't have all that information to confuse them. With this work order, you can see all the comments that were added. They have the date and the time that the comments were added. So we have May 6th was the first comment. You got another comment on May 6th, and then on May 8th. So this was on a Saturday when the initial work was done. And then on Monday, we went back and we made more adjustments, created or added another comment. So you can follow, if you logged in and you saw, you could follow what we had done and what days we did it on. So if you're wondering what happened, you can go up to the attachments. So this was the initial leak that was found. This was called in. This is off of 2nd Street, 8th Avenue. So you can see the leak was manifesting itself next to the valley gutter. It was running down the valley gutter into an actual storm drain. So that item or that image right there, the employee would open up the work order and see this is what it looked like at the time that we took the picture. If you go to the other image, this is the excavation of that repair. So as you can see, there's an AC line. This is a common failure to an AC line. This is a collar and the gaskets blow out. At that point, we cut the collar off and replace it with a stainless steel repair clamp. Which you can see right here. So that's the completed work. That's the new repair clamp that's been installed. And this is just another view of that, what we were dealing with. So the first image showed you the manifestation of the leak by the valley gutter. There was 2 layers of asphalt, so the leak was following that lower layer of asphalt and finding the path of least resistance. So now you can see we had 2 road cuts as we were following that leak. Another useful tool is a basic search. So there's service requests. So if a customer calls in and says, hey, I have a water leak in the meter box, or my sewer line's plugged, I need you to come look at it, we can tie a service request to an address. So I can search 317, so I can just search the address number and it'll populate any of the addresses that have 317 in there. See, we see that there's a work order or service request that was created. It shows you where that location is, information about the property, and then you can add comments of what the customer was experiencing and what we identified. So in this instance, the customer had several plumbers go out to the house and snake the line. The plumber said that the plug was on the city side, and that's when we responded. So we went out there, we identified where our responsibility was, which is the clean out. So if we have a city-owned clean out, that is a designation of responsibility of when we get involved. So this image is showing you the clean out at the property, and you can see that the clean out is dry, indicating that the plug is somewhere upstream of that. If there was water coming out of this clean out, that means the plug is downstream. We would be responsible for taking care of that and freeing that plug up. So if there were ever any question of what happened that day, you could go back and say, well, these are the pictures that we have for that resident and what we saw. So you can see that it's dry, just another angle. And then there's also another image of the customer side line. We were able to turn that camera to look up the customer side. This is indicating that the customer side pipe is elongated, and so there could be issues. Just another point of saying we believe that the plug was on the customer side, so we referred them back to a plumber to get out there. Eventually, they got the plumber out there to free the plug up. So another helpful tool of tracking an asset is, let's say, out in Daly Estates, we have a line that has several issues and keeps breaking. I can come out here, I can select this asset, which is the water main. I can go to asset details. It shows that I selected that main, and then I can view all details. Now, if I want to know if there's any work orders that have been done on that, I can select that tab, and sure enough, there's been a work order that's been completed. That work order was completed on May 5th. So as we go through City Works, we're going to build and compile this inventory of all these assets, all these repairs, so that we can then determine where our focuses need to be. So if I open this work order, it takes me to exactly what had happened. Same thing, it gives you all the information of when it was created, when it was finished, instructions, any comments of what the operator at the time, and then you can go to the attachments to see what the issue was. So this was a leak on our transmission main going to the Daly tank. One of the complications about working on a transmission main is it feeds a large population of people. So if you want to shut that transmission main down, you're going to be killing a lot of homes from water service. So what the operators did was they repaired that live. So you can follow the images of their excavation, what they found in the ground. So this is not a collar, this is a beam break, which is another common failure of our AC line. So this is just a small fracture around the entire diameter of the pipe. And then you can see what the repair clamp does. So 10 years, 15 years down the road, somebody can select that asset, see exactly what work was done, and determine their focus. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
I think this was a good purchase. I know there was a little bit of questioning on it at the time, but makes a ton of sense. Morgan, were any past work orders added to it, or did it just start when we started?
Vice Mayor, Councilman Hemphill, nothing was transferred over. We just started from square one once
Right.
it got started off, kicked off the ground. It is a learning experience. This tool is very beneficial, and I believe we've barely scratched the surface for the potential of it. You can dissect these work orders, and it becomes very granular. It's a very powerful tool that will be beneficial for the city as we utilize it and we grow and learn. So,
Morgan, I have a question. In reference to Pace and Data Estates, how's that project coming along? Are we gonna get that road paved, or?
So Vice Mayor, Councilman Andazola, we did complete we had 3 major main breaks on an AC line out there, and we installed a new 6-inch C900 line. All that's waiting right now is the plant to be hot, CKC, and then we'll get that paved.
Okay.
So CKC, at times, they notify us, hey, when they're not hot every day, whenever a large project comes in, they notify us, and we order hot mix. So that's all that we're waiting on. And I believe that's scheduled to be patched, I believe, this week.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Thank you, Morgan, very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll close our regular meeting and reconvene into a council work session. You want a 5-minute break before we? No, let's go into it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, now then we're in our work session. John, you want to take it?
Council, there was some questions raised regarding naming of facilities and locations, and my past experience is that it's fairly common to have an official policy for the city in terms of naming facilities and different locations. So what we did was we put together basically a policy to look at procedures that we would use in terms of naming, whether it be two basic approaches. One would be functional, so if you had a city hall or a garage that you built, that generally speaking, the approach is that the staff that works with that asset would call it the City of Safford, Public Works Garage or something to that effect. The other element of this, the other main thread of this, is some type of commemorative naming of either a park or a facility. That would involve council. Now, in looking at our codes, we already have things in there for naming of streets, particularly in subdivisions, but individuals can engage as well in bringing forward a recommendation for a name of the street. So really the purpose of the work session tonight is I put together a draft naming policy. And again, I kind of culled it together from different communities across the country, Tucson and other areas. Some issues that came up when we were, working and discussing this in our staff meeting were issues with, what level of council involvement? Are you comfortable with having us name a functional facility without council being involved, or do you still want to be involved? Commemorative naming, the main issue that I've come up against was in Sierra Vista when we had it. Individual would have to be deceased in order to put their name on a facility. Doesn't have to be that way. There are reasons they did it that way, but that was an approach that they took. Also, if you were going to put someone who had passed on there, do you want to wait a certain amount of time? The other element of this is that you could even get into arrangements with private companies if you wanted to put private names on things and charge them a fee to have their name on there. And again, I don't know that this council wants to get involved with that, but I'm just trying to give you food for thought in terms of your options, in terms of that naming. So, I did attach a draft policy. It's fairly straightforward. I won't go through all the verbiage in there, but, again, the goal here tonight is to simply get your feedback so that we could write something up that we could then bring back for your review.
Any comments?
I would hope that we would lean toward not making the requirement that somebody be deceased. I know the argument for that, but it seems oftentimes to be a bit of a shame to not be able to honor somebody while they're able to enjoy it. I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but I like the idea of being able to name something after somebody before they've passed.
I'd kinda like to see, maybe turn this over to the Recreation Committee and let them kind of, give it some thought. I don't wanna have to make that decision, as long as it's a good, healthy, wholesome name and respectful name.
Well, I think in answering your comment, there is the option that we could bring something back and rename it if we needed to. So if someone did something untoward where you decided that you didn't want their name on a facility, you could come back and revisit that issue. As far as the Parks and Rec Committee, I think the council would have options, right, in the way that the policy is written, depending on what you're naming. So obviously, we're moving forward, we're gonna be working on a park. And we do have a public body that is involved in the designing of that park, and so it would make sense potentially for council to say to them, why don't you gather information and bring forward suggestions to council, and then ultimately council could make that decision, if you wanted to, based on the impact, or the feedback that you have received. So again, it would depend on, if we built a city hall, do you wanna put someone's name on it, right? And so that wouldn't necessarily be the Parks and Rec Committee, it could simply be, hey, staff, go out, do a survey, get input, get recommendations, bring them back to council, then council could make a decision. So, again, it would depend on what you were naming as to the approach you would take. Certainly a park, it would probably make sense that the Park and Rec Committee be part of that process and bring perhaps some recommendations to you that they gather from the public.
I don't believe they have to be deceased either, Mr. Hemphill. And giving it to like the Park Committee, that's just giving another committee some say. And lots of times when we don't take committees like that, what they ask us to do, then we're undermining them. I think the final decision ought to come before the council, but have as much input as we want to put into it. I'm still reading what was written in this, these suggestions, so there's still some more to digest, but I would hope the final decision would come before us.
I agree with that as well, and I'm glad you brought this up, Councilman Lopez, because it's something that we need to be a little more concrete.
Yeah, I think there's some things that could get away from us if we don't, in the city, if we don't get in there and name it what the citizens want to name it.
Well, and I don't know if it would be written in or even need to be, but we could even name things that aren't new or haven't just been built. You can go back and name, and I like the idea of that. I mean, we have a library that could have some different naming opportunities, things like that. And again, even corporate for like naming rights. If there's a revenue option there.
Yeah, and I think there's provisions that I put in here as well that would say that, at the point at which a functional name became a commemorative name, you just would go through that process and make that. And I know that some of the impetus behind this was that we had a particular area within the city that somehow a name cropped up in association with it, and no one really knew why. And so, again, it may be an opportunity for us to either confirm a name of that kind or go in a different direction, so that it's not just a random act.
Yeah, because some of these are going to end up on maps.
Right.
Right, and it would be something that would then end up in official correspondence.
We're just barely starting. We'll come up with something.
Right, well, and for me, there's even a more personal connection to it. It was reported in the, like the Gila Herald and Gila Valley Central, the stage at the Safford Theater will be named after my dad, Charlie, when it's eventually completed. So, and that was a fun process to go through with the Downtown Association, kind of arranging that. And that's a ways off but, so I love the idea. It's personal to me, the idea that you know, we commemorate these things. And I'd like to see it with a lot of facilities that we already have. You could overdo it, I guess, probably too, but.
Yeah, you could overdo it, having too many hands in it.
Right, well, I think we have some opportunities right now with the park coming up, and there may be an opportunity to rename some things as well if you wanted to. But I think the park would be a process that would end up here with the council, but could go through the Parks and Rec Committee as a starting point since they're involved in that. And then we can make a decision, see what kind of input they get from the public. But right now, I'm just looking for basic guidelines, and it sounds like this idea of an individual needing to be deceased, we can take that out and make it somebody that's current, especially since you have the opportunity to rename it if you choose to. And if there are any particular facilities that you want to name, we could bring that. I could put a provision in there to cover anything where you would want to look at some kind of naming where it would be a revenue generator. We could look at that. That definitely would be something that we'd want to bring to council, obviously.
Okay, you have enough direction?
I do, I think I do.
Then let's see, we can move to item number 21.
Make the motion, we adjourn.
Second.
I like that, sounds good.